I've been coming to this meetup, so I feel pretty honored. Well, except for, you know, the annoying 30 seconds I give at the beginning of each one. But, so, as he said, I'm going to be talking about kind of Bitcoin things. It's blockchain technology. I'm sure many of you have heard those words thrown around, but mostly what I'm going to be actually talking about is the way, and like he was saying, instead of just picketing against these existing systems, it's better to just invent an alternative, present it to the people, and then, you know, have it change over just because it's a better system. And so using blockchain technology, which is what this all is about, it will allow a whole list of problems that we currently have going on with our medical, as he said, medical industrial complex. They just go away because they don't work in a system that's decentralized. So, but before that, I want to talk about some of the actual issues. So there's this reoccurring story that keeps going on, which is this guy Joe's a programmer. He goes and he, you know, spends most of his day hunched over a computer programming. He loves his job. He's got good pay. He's got good insurance. He's got pretty good hours. He gets to go and live life and do things like he wants. But all of a sudden, he's doing this, you know, 5, 6, 10 years, and all of a sudden, he starts having back pain. A little bit of back pain, you know, he wakes up with it, and it's, you know, annoys him as he goes throughout the day. And so, of course, he does what every good citizen does, which is go and ask his doctor, you know, doctor, why am I having back pain? What can we do about this? Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys know where this is going, and you already know that the doctor isn't going to say, hey, you have back pain because you're hunched over a computer all day, because you need to change your habits, maybe work out more, get a stand-up desk, anything like that. No, his doctor says, well, I've got this medication that's great for dealing with that problem. And what he means is, I've got a medication that's really good for masking that pain. So he ends up taking the drug, and it's probably opiate-derived, since that seems to be their favorite right now. And a few months later, maybe 6 months later, maybe even a year or two later, he comes back, and because his back pain has gotten worse. And not only has his back pain got worse, but now he's constipated, or he's got migraines to go along with it because of the opiates he was prescribed by his doctor. So then the doctor says, oh, well, you know, there's this new stuff that just came out. It works great for all those things you just listed. Here's a new prescription, a higher dose, and sends him back on his way. It's only a matter of time before that one of two things happens with that person, which is his use turns into abuse and continues on from there, or because he is now foggy from taking so many opiates, he gets in an accident, ends up breaking somebody's back, and then they're forced to start taking opiates, and the cycle just continues. Now, when I was thinking through this logically and doing some research and talking to a couple doctors, I realized that the really messed up part of this whole thing, though, is that, say, at the beginning, he didn't go to Dr. Smith, and he went to Dr. Johnson. And Dr. Johnson said all the things that I just mentioned, which is work out, you know, get a better chair, use a stand-up desk half the day, you know, be more active, fix the root of your problem, maybe see a chiropractor, fix the root of your problem, and not just start on this track of opiates. The really messed up part of it is that that same person would say, what does this guy know what he's talking about? He didn't even give me any drugs. And he just goes to a different doctor until they do. And this is something, working with addicts recently, this is something I've heard them say, is that, yeah, I just thought the doctor didn't know what he was talking about because he didn't give me something to fix the solution, or fix the problem. He just said, live your life in a better way, and I wasn't going to listen to that. So even if these doctors, even these few good doctors that actually want to help people, they can't because they lose customers. And on top of that, their customers go elsewhere and get worse treatment. So they say, well, I'd rather give them the lesser of two evils, essentially. Who knows where they're going to end up and take something even worse? Or I can give them what I think is the best treatment. But this isn't just for back pain. The problem is you have somebody like Jane who goes to a psychologist and says, I have stress. I have anxiety, you know, my job is really stressful, I'm working 80-hour weeks, and my boyfriend just broke up with me, and so on and so forth. And they might do a session or two, but by the, it's expensive. It's hundreds of dollars a session. So ultimately it comes down to, what can we do to speed this up? And she says, I've got a great medication for it, Xanax. And if you actually do the research, you'll find that people going through rehabs, especially women going through rehabs for opiate addiction, there's a huge chunk of them that said, I got started on opiates through Xanax from my psychiatrist who was supposed to help me with my problems. This is a ridiculous, huge problem that isn't going to be controlled or changed overnight, because what it comes down to is people want quick fixes. And people have always wanted quick fixes, and especially today we live in a society that's even more full of quick fixes. We don't want to just watch TV. We want to watch the exact shows we want to watch at the exact time we want to watch them. We don't want to just get food, go out and get food. We want it ordered to our house, and we want it to be there in less than 30 minutes, and it better be good, and it better be exactly right. There's this huge issue that it's not even, at the end of the day, it's not even the doctor's fault, because they're still many times trying to do what's best for their people. Am I out inside of the camera here? Yeah. I have a tendency to walk around. Plus, this thing is really loud in my ear, so.
Well, it's not really loud back there.
Oh, okay. Anyway. Eating, is that better? All right.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like I'm booming in my own head now.
That's a different connotation in this group.
So, moving on. Outside of that issue, we have a common issue that is well known for people that are in decentralized technologies, that are in Bitcoin, that are in blockchain tech, which is big data. And when you have big data, you have somebody that actually owns your information. When we're talking about Bitcoin and money, it's the banks. They sell your financial, not specific identifying information, but they sell other financial information to advertisers and who knows what. And the medical system suffers from this even more than the financial system, in the sense that when we have big data, and our data is our medical history, our personal facts, all that information, these doctors and clinics and hospitals actually pay a company to manage their data. And then that company charges people. They can't charge that individual users, thank God, but they can charge medical research facilities and other research places to be able to access and use that information. So what that ends up creating is a huge barrier of entry for being able to do medical research. You can't just go out and get the data you need to be able to test different drugs, or find the people that you need to make sure that you're meeting your demographic, and that you can know people's history well enough to see that if it's something in their history that's an issue, or if it's something from the drug. So on top of that, you have somebody that's actually trusted with that information. And we've seen time and time again where celebrities and other known figures actually have their information sold without their consent, and it just gets released publicly. And obviously they're really upset if a bunch of personal information from their past start cropping up. The problem with big data goes even further. Is if you want to talk about data leaks and stolen information, you have a big chunk of information stored somewhere, and it's a big target for somebody to come steal it. So I could actually talk for another hour just on all the problems of big data storage, but I think you guys get the general gist. And the idea behind it is that if you have one person or one company in control of information, not only does that information become hard to access from both ends, but you have to trust that person. And whenever you're in the position of trusting somebody you don't know, that's a huge problem. We've seen it time and time again throughout history. The third major issue with the current medical industrial complex, and this is one that I know a lot of people here in Denver are privy to, which is that the repression of drugs and natural cures that they can't directly make money on. Obviously, the big one here is marijuana. And marijuana, regardless of whether you like it or not, is a much better substitute than opiates is. Opiates are extremely addictive. They're a lifelong habit. And honestly, they don't do much more than marijuana with CBD and THC can do by itself, without the addiction, without the long-term medical issues. So the problem is how you actually make money on those natural cures, especially not just natural treatments, but natural cures. Because a cure, there's the whole saying, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, and you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Well, that applies to giving out drugs. If you give him one drug that, takes care of him for a day, or excuse me, a lifetime, then you run out of a job, right? If you're a fisherman and you teach somebody else to fish, you're taking money out of your own pocket. So then if you treat a man's disease, if you give somebody insulin to take care of their diabetes instead of telling them how to restructure their diet properly, or if you give somebody things like Suboxone and methadone to replace even like slightly addictive chemicals such as codeine, you're setting a lifelong customer. You're setting somebody that has to come back week after week, month after month, year after year, until they pretty much say, I give up, I can't do it anymore, which just doesn't happen. And the more I've done with work with things like Suboxone, the more I find that doctors always tell their patients that they're going to get off of them in a month or two, and then that never actually happens. They're still on Suboxone 6, 8, 10 years later. And the withdrawals are even worse than what it would have been from their Oxycontin, from their codeine, or from their even heroin. It's a really, really, really terrible cycle. So when we're talking about these three major issues of the modern medical industry and how it's affecting society as a whole, where it's causing more people to be addicted and allowing for inconsistencies in the truth, and also for people to actually have to pay. If your medical records aren't stored in a digital format, you have to pay access fees for them to go and actually look it up. They say it's free, but they're allowed to charge a service fee so that you can access your data. You're not paying for your data, you're paying for access to it. So it's obvious that they're going to just continue to make money in any little place they can, and continue selling your medical data to whoever they want, for pretty much whoever has a big pile of cash and a pretty good excuse. That's all it takes to buy large chunks of data. So when we're talking about these three issues, and then how research is changed and modified, or people only use the research that they want to prove what they're trying to say, they can all be fixed by a pretty simple blockchain solution, using the same way Bitcoin stores money in a decentralized manner, having people have their own control over their money. We can do that with medical records. And there's actually a company called Ullrich. They published their local company from Denver. They published their white paper 13 months ago. I'll post it. I think it's posted online already, but if not, I'll post it there. Ubase actually allows people to store their medical data in a hierarchical way that allows for your most personal information to be at the top level, and then so on and so forth down the list. So you can say, okay, I want all the medications I've been taking and how long I've been taking them to be released, along with where the area I was born and my age and my sex. And that way they can see, okay, these people taking these drugs over a long period of time have these effects, without having any trusted parties. This can be all done decentralized. That not only makes it significantly cheaper, because you're not getting paid, you're not paying to have somebody store your data and then paying to retrieve your data. You just have a very minor fee, a very small fee for when that data is actually placed into the system. And then that data is then stored by and backed up by math and by cryptography, rather than by a good faith in a company that we've never heard of. So, back to the other things, the first situation though, when we're talking about Joe, if you have a free access to information, then Joe will be able to look up and see that whatever medication this doctor is trying to show him, he'll be able to see that, oh, this is not a short-term, this is not a solution at all. This is just something to cover it up. People that have come in for my same reasons and started taking the same thing are still taking it, or worse, 6 years later, 5 years later. If he can see that face first, then you better believe he's going to look for the alternative because he knows he doesn't want to be on opiates for the rest of his life. And then on top of that, you have the doctors who have to face the reality. Because a lot of the times, doctors only know as much as they're told. They have to read popular medical journals, because if they're not reading popular medical journals and that's not where they get their information, then their information pretty much isn't good, right? So they can't, then the medical journals are obviously controlled by who? The drug companies, the ones that are selling all these drugs. So obviously they're going to sponsor and promote the drugs that they want to see happen. And no matter how many laws we place or how many things the system tries to do to prevent this, they just come in and find different ways. This company provides free lunch every day or free lunch every 3 days, and well, you're getting the free lunch, just like any real estate seminar or any other free lunch you've ever heard of, they've got an alternative motive to pitch you something else. So if you think these doctors are going in and just eating a free lunch and getting a pitch, or not getting a pitch or anything along with it, you're living in a dream world. So if we have people that can face their futures, they're based on unbiased data that is recorded and well open to everybody, that solves the solution of people going and getting treatments that aren't really, they're treating a symptom of the problem and not actually fixing the problem itself. If we go further on from that, let's see, my password, I forgot. Everybody's making me nervous. Here's the thing. Normally, I just have to give my presentation to a bunch of people I don't really care about or know, but tonight a third of my family is here for my brother's wedding, so I have to put up with the extra intimidation.
Pressure.
You should have taken some opiates.
Yeah, that would have really calmed my nerves, right?
We got a drug for that.
Yeah, there's always another drug for it, and that's the problem. So, those things are strong, right? I'm learning this now, but the third thing, and the last big thing, and the one that's more personal to me recently, is the inability to repress cures, repress medications that we know directly help a person better than anything else. I don't have to tell most of you guys here, because half of us are conspiracy theorists and the other half just are but don't want to believe they are. So, yeah, exactly. So, there's all these medicines that are out there that are a lot better for you than the 2 or 3 different drugs that they would prescribe to you at a doctor. Marijuana, for one, is one, because normally they would have to prescribe you opiates to repress pain, and then something else to stimulate your appetite, and then something else to just get rid of the side effects of those 2 other things. By the time, instead of taking 1 natural substance, you're taking 3 artificial substances that are really addictive. So the crazy thing about this, though, even though marijuana was made illegal for completely other reasons than medical stuff. It was actually paper industry and a whole bunch of other stuff. But the issue is, even now, and the reason it stayed illegal is because once these pharmaceutical companies have created alternatives, they actually lobby to get their alternative in, lobby to get it into the doctors, then lobby, they get it all the way to you, and then they start lobbying against whatever is working to help people as a natural way so that they can make money, because if you're smoking marijuana, you're not taking opiates. So if they intentionally, it's seen time and time again that people intentionally, or these companies are intentionally blocking known cures. There's a lot of people that believe that there's been a cure of cancer for 20 years or more. And you know what? It's hard to say that there isn't, because the ultra-rich don't seem to get cancer nearly as much as the rest of the population, which you can blame it on all kinds of things, but it is a little bit suspicious. So, and honestly, The Simpsons, all those major cartoons have done episodes directly on the reason why the ultra-rich don't get that sick, because they have all these repressed cures, and because it's a lot more effective to give a lot more profitable to give people chemotherapy for a long time than it is to cure them. So what I've had a recent experience with is something called ibogaine, and I know a lot of people have heard about it. It's actually There was actually the marijuana guy not too long ago spoke a minute about it too. And it's really well known for treating addictions and treating, yeah, pretty much just addictions of all kinds, helping treat opiate addicts and alcoholics and all kinds of things. But what isn't known is that it's actually been being researched since the 1930s. Excuse me. Researched since the 1930s. And when somebody actually did a Freedom of Information request on it in 2009, they found over 1,200 pages of government data on ibogaine and its different uses. Now, you don't do 1,200 pages of research on something that's not doing anything. It's just, you don't do it. Why would you waste your money there? So the place that I'm specifically working with, we actually work with all kinds of people, because ibogaine is unlike iboga. Iboga is closer to ayahuasca or peyote, or it's a emotional, spiritual event where you spend a lot of a day puking and feeling really sick. Ibogaine we actually use in a medicinal sense. It's an extract from iboga. And we're finding that we can use it to treat all kinds of different things. For me, I had an autoimmune disorder and a thyroid problem. That's why I've never weighed, this is the most I've ever weighed, literally. I've never weighed more than 135 until up to a couple months ago, and I'm over 5'8"-ish. So I was obviously very, very underweight. But we recently treated somebody for cancer. We didn't cure their cancer, but we believe that using ibogaine to treat them, we've prevented their cancer from reoccurring anymore, and it looks like that's the case. We're not sure. You've got to go years down the road before we can really know that. But over time, in the last 8 years that this clinic has been treating people, obviously addicts come in with all kinds of things, from hepatitis A and B and to herpes and HIV and this enormous amount of stuff. We've actually have documented cases of if not completely curing, dramatically reducing the effect of things like Crohn's disease, diabetes. Currently we're actually treating a patient for MS, which we haven't actually done before. This is the first MS patient we have. So we're really excited to see the results, because unlike treating people with traditional medicine and drugs, ibogaine forces your body to heal itself. So it's not treating one individual issue, but it's actually allowing people's body to correctly fix the issues they might have. So for instance, my friend that had herpes, when he came down to get treated, it wasn't, you can take herpes medication and repress it so you don't have any symptoms, but it's still in your blood. So whenever you stop taking that medication, it just flares right up again. What he found though, and he came down to get treated for addiction. He was not shy about that. But what he found is that when he got a blood test, when he went back to the States, they told him to stop taking his herpes medication because it was no longer in his blood. Because essentially the blood cells started to attack and get rid of it out of your system, unlike what it would normally do. So there's obviously, and if we could talk for, I don't know, days on just the different repressed medications and whatnot. What's that? Yeah, we should definitely do a Q&A, because I'm gonna talk forever and then it'll be too late. So yeah, let's.